Did you know that you can use Hackerkaiser to block enemy spells that are cast at the beginning of the fight? Or maybe you want to rebuild your carry without having to sell him? I hope you're ready for 10 more 500 IQ plays that you can use to leave your opponents speechless. But just before we get started, I'm willing to bet that you can't subscribe to this channel before this echo makes the Sejuani 3-star ult in the opposite direction. Are you ready? Go! Even if you didn't make it, I still appreciate your support. Let's get going. Pandora's bench might qualify as the most unique augment in the game. Being able to reroll units from the same tier definitely has the potential to win you the game by creating setups that would be impossible otherwise. Sadly, the reality looks quite different. It has a pretty low top 4 rate for a reason, since a lot of your gold is tied up on your bench, hoping for the perfect roll, and you're pretty much just relying on RNG. But this doesn't have to be the case. So allow me to share one of Pandora's bench most well-hidden secrets. Almost all players believe that the units will reroll at the beginning of the next round, but this isn't technically correct. It occurs after a small delay. This delay allows you to spam the hotkey to deploy your units back to the bench, and if you blocked every space except for the 3 Pandora spots, then the unit you just used in combat can still make it in time for a reroll. Using this mechanic, you can field your upgraded units for one round without missing any important rolls. Or you know, if you already have a successful setup, you can simply have some fun trying out different 3-star T4 units every single round. But be advised, this is an advanced strategy. It is not recommended for old people, since they might forgot where they placed their units or messed up the timing. Nunu is probably one of the most unique units that got added in set 8. He has a special moveset where he can't attack and instead he rolls through the board, picking up speed, size and damage over time. But unbeknown to most players, he has a secret interaction. If Nunu hits a unit, that unit will get slightly bumped, which causes Nunu to not be able to hit that unit anymore, at least for a certain amount of time. Maybe this is intended, maybe not, but you can bypass this restriction by playing multiple Nunus and have them run into the same direction. With the correct angle, they will push their target into each other, causing you to hit it multiple times, and you can even one-shot the enemy carry pretty much at the beginning of the fight. So if you're looking to try out the new 5 Gadgeteen buff, make sure you pick up the hero augment mirror image from LeBlanc, so you can duplicate your Nunu and make use of this mechanic. Blitzcrank is a somewhat boring tank in set 8, but he truly shines if he gets a supportive augment Rocket Grab, which brings him back to his former glory. Hooking the enemy carry grants you an easy fight, but unfortunately the longer the game goes, the more your opponents will become aware of your Blitzcrank. They will start running filler units in a corner to block the hook. Honestly, this can even result in disaster if you end up hooking the enemy tank into your own team. Sometimes you can get rid of those annoying filler units with Zephyr, but this is not an item you will always have at your disposal. Lucky for you, there is an additional strategy you can use, playing a second Blitzcrank. It sounds so simple, but the reason why this works is because both of them will hook, but not the same target. So if you end up adding an additional Blitzcrank last second onto your board, you can easily catch your opponent off guard and inflict a devastating blow even in late game. Woodland Charm is a pretty cool augment, but sometimes you will be faced with a situation where your highest HP unit isn't the unit you want to copy. If you feel your frontline is strong enough, it might be much more interesting having a second Urgot instead of, you know, like an Echo or an Alistar, so you can print more gold and items to give yourself an advantage. The solution for our dilemma is to bench the unit with the highest HP and keep a slot on your board open. Once the planning phase is over, the game will automatically select the most left unit on your bench and put it into play in the middle of your last row. Woodland Charm won't be able to update the new HP values in time, which gives you more agency about the unit you want to copy. Nyla's gifted augment is incredibly misunderstood by most of the player base. It has a lot of secret interactions and rules that you have to abide to truly get the most out of it. I mean, most players just use the augment to create like an additional locket in the duelist comp, or they distribute an additional tank item when playing Yuumi reroll. I think this is a bit of a waste, because with Nyla you can achieve a lot more if you think a bit outside of the box. Nyla is able to give an emblem to one of her allies and this emblem will count as an additional +1 to the trait. This makes it a lot easier to reach specific chase traits like 8 mascots or 9 laser cores. It does sound quite broken, but there is a catch. You will only receive the additional bonus to the trait while the unit with the gifted emblem is still alive. Especially with laser cores, this can become extremely awkward, since your unit getting picked off is pretty much the equivalent of an EMP and all of your additional drones get shut down. From all of the legendaries, Syndra has been a bit unpopular in set 8. I mean, she's often used in Star Guardians or Hardcoms, but outside of those, I would say most players prefer to put either Urgot or Fiddlesticks onto their board. Now, one of the reasons she isn't that well liked is because a lot of traits and augments won't interact with the units that she's throwing in. But this doesn't mean that every trait is useless. In fact, there are 2 traits in particular that are very popular in combination with Syndra: Oxforce and Prankster. Units from these traits can make use of the Oxforce immunity or, spawn bonus Prankster dummies. But I have to say, my personal favorite is playing Syndra in a Mecha Prime setup with Augments and sacrificing a Draven. This way, if she throws in a Mordekaiser, he now benefits from the Ace trait, which results in his ability being a lot more devastating. I think we can all agree building items is fun, and most players will be keen to slam their items once they find them. In fact, the only items you see that aren't slammed in the planning phase are usually the Shroud of Stillness and Zephyr, since you kind of want to react to your opponent's positioning. Something you see a lot less often is delaying Edge of Night. You can give this item to a unit that is already below 60% HP to simply proc the effect whenever you choose. On the other hand, something you will never see is delaying Quicksilver. It probably has something to do with the item being so unpopular, but there are spots where this can be useful. Quicksilver grants crowd control immunity for 15 seconds, but it's not always the first 15 seconds of the fight that matter. After all, your carry might only get focused later into the fight. The effect of Quicksilver will only start once you use the item, so by delaying it, you might end up protecting your carry for the entirety of the fight and give yourself an advantage in late game. Speaking of being patient, here is one strategy you definitely don't want to miss out on: cheesing with your item Anvil. The Anvil gives you 30 seconds to select your item, and you can use this to your advantage. Don't use your Anvil right away in the planning phase. Instead, you want to wait a bit. There are tons of useful utility items like Shroud, Zephyr, or even a Blitzcrank hook from an Ornn Anvil that you want to hide from your opponent. If you select the Anvil early, your opponent can see the upcoming threat on your item bench and react accordingly, which gives away your advantage. If you watched my last video, you will know that if you hit a unit as 3-star, then this unit can never appear in your shop again. In fact, it cannot even appear as a potential dice outcome. Now, this won't happen too often, but there are cases where it's interesting to play a unit more than once. The most famous example we had so far in set 8 was the terrifying double Vel'Koz comp at the beginning of the set. This comp often had to deal with the question if you should upgrade Vel'Koz to 3-star or instead run 2 Vel'Koz 2-star for more crowd control. Yet the best solution to this dilemma was simply doing both. Once you have the final Vel'Koz in your shop, you don't buy him until the combat starts. This way he won't upgrade to 3-star until the next planning phase, and this will give you enough time to go for a roll down and find an additional Vel'Koz 2-star. Laser Cores is a pretty cool and popular trait in set 8. It has a great mix of physical and magic damage, and that has been shown to work not only with damage items, but even in a tank setup. However, if you reach the late game, it can often feel that Z isn't up to the task anymore. Maybe your opponent created a huge cluster, which is too difficult for Z to penetrate, and you end up taking a huge loss. Normally, this is where Mordekaiser has to pick up the slack, but anyone who ever used this unit knows that he can be surprisingly unreliable, since his ult direction is based on where he is attacking. The solution? Don't send Z into the backline, send Mordekaiser instead. By transporting him into the last row, he will attack sideways, so you can guarantee yourself an ultimate that will cover the entire last 2 rows of your opponent. I hope you enjoyed these plays, and hey, if you want to make a 500 IQ play yourself, why not subscribe or leave a comment so you never miss out on any future content. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.